Who is it? Who betrayed the family? There are only a few people with authority over the cosmic array on planet Sala. In particular, the array I at the core is only controlled by the family head. No, there's someone else who might know. Everyone's expression changed, as if they had thought of something. Miss Sarah's gaze also grew incomparably sharp as she stared in a certain direction. She really did not want to see that figure. Unfortunately, she was still disappointed. A slender figure gradually appeared in front of everyone. It was a very youthful-looking man. He was slender and pale, and his appearance vaguely resembled Miss Sarah's. When Miss Sarah's gaze landed on the man, his face became even paler, and his eyes were filled with panic. "Wilson, you destroyed the array eye?" Miss Sarah seemed to be in disbelief. Her entire body was trembling violently. She really hoped that Wilson would deny it. However, she would be disappointed. Wilson's gaze was evasive, and his entire being was timid. Even without responding, everyone already knew the answer. "Sarah, it's me." "That's right. It's me. There's no hope for our Sala family. Young Master Lin has already promised me many benefits. Moreover, do you see this? I've already metamorphosed into a planetary life form. This thanks to all the resources young Master Lin gave me. The Lin family is very sincere. Moreover, young Master Lin is very talented. He's a good match for sister." Thud. Miss Sarah waved her hand and sent Wilson, who was caught off guard, flying. Wilson was her younger brother, her only biological brother. She had showered him with love and could never bear to let Wilson shoulder the heavy responsibilities of the family. Sarah had taken everything upon herself. She never expected that her younger brother, Wilson, would be the one to betray her and the family in the end. Why? Miss Sarah's voice was trembling. Why would the brother she had protected in every way betray the family? Of course she could tell that Wilson had already undergone metamorphosis. Through the Lin family's methods, providing a large amount of resources could indeed allow Wilson to undergo metamorphosis. However, so what if he had metamorphosed? By relying on accumulating resources, he had barely metamorphosed into a planetary life form. How could he possibly improve further in the future? Sarah was deeply disappointed in Wilson. Just for this small amount of benefits, Wilson had betrayed her and the family. Lin Huanyu waved at Wilson and said, "Wilson, come over. We'll be family soon. You've done a good job. This is the right choice. They'll all be grateful to you in the future." Wilson also bit his lip tightly, but did not say anything. Even if he wanted to regret it now, it was too late. From the moment he destroyed the eye of the cosmic array on planet Sala, there was no way out. "Miss Sarah, what a pity. We were so looking forward to seeing the cosmic array of the Sala family. Now, there's no way that would happen. What a pity." Although the three quasi-emperors had expressions of regret, the aura on their bodies did not wane at all. Instead, it swept through the entire planet Sala in an even more forceful manner. Under the reeking of the auras of the three quasi-emperors, everyone in the Sala family despaired. The cosmic array was their last resort, and without it, forget about the three quasi-emperors, even one quasi-emperor was far from what the current Sala family could resist. "Is that so?" Miss Sarah closed her eyes. At the same time, the aura on her body expanded rapidly. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the aura on Miss Sarah's body had already increased to the level of a quasi-emperor. It entangled, collided, and confronted the auras of the three quasi-emperors madly. What? A quasi-emperor? Lin Huanyu was shocked. He had never thought that Miss Sarah could actually become a quasi-emperor. Lin Huanyu was not the only one who was shocked. Everyone from the Sala family was equally shocked. Some of the elders who knew the inside story all had excited expressions. They knew what Miss Sarah had gone to do previously. Now that Miss Sarah's strength had suddenly soared, how could they not understand what was going on? What a blessing for the Sala family. Haha, Miss Sarah must have obtained the artifact on the ancient demon planet. Her strength has actually increased substantially. A quasi-emperor. Another quasi-emperor has finally been born in our Sala family. In time, Miss Sarah may even become a grand emperor. There's hope for the revival of the Sala family. Compared to the ecstasy of the Sala family, Wilson looked dejected. He did not expect his sister, Sarah, could actually become a quasi-emperor. That was a height that he could never dream of attaining. Huh? Quasi-emperor? The rumors are actually true? You really went to the ancient demon planet. The expressions of the three quasi-emperors of the Lin family changed. They had previously received news that Miss Sarah had temporarily left planet Sala. They had even received vague news that Miss Sarah took a risk and ventured to planet Ancient Demon. Originally, they did not quite believe the various rumors about the Ancient Demon planet, but that kind of dangerous place was indeed mysterious and unpredictable. The venerables or quasi-emperors of the Lin family would not take the risk unless necessary. But now that Miss Sarah's strength had suddenly increased substantially, the three quasi-emperors of the Lin family were naturally suspicious. So what if she's a quasi-emperor? Can't the three of us suppress him? Miss Sarah, you'd better think this through. Once you attack, the entire planet Sala will be finished. The three quasi-emperors glared at Miss Sarah. The situation had changed, but they were not afraid. Everything was still under control. Even if Miss Sarah had become a quasi-emperor, she was not a match for the three of them. Moreover, considering Sarah's character, she would definitely choose to protect the Sala family. The only variable was that Sarah had already become a quasi-emperor. Then, should the Lin family's previous marriage plan continue? If Lin Huanyu really married Sarah, Sarah would become an unstable factor. If Sarah metamorphosed into a grand emperor one day, the situation would probably be reversed immediately. There was still hope for the revival of the Sala family. Miss Sarah bit her lip and stared intently at the three quasi-emperors. She still felt very pained regarding Wilson, who was behind the three quasi-emperors. If Wilson had not destroyed the cosmic array, with her current strength as a quasi-emperor, she could even easily kill these three quasi-emperors by activating the cosmic array. Miss Sarah would have nothing to fear even if the Lin family's grand emperor ancestor arrived. But now it was too late. It was all too late. Without the cosmic array, the Sala family had completely lost its protection. Once a great battle broke out, planet Sala might even be destroyed. Moreover, Sarah had become a quasi-emperor. How could she contend with three veteran quasi-emperors? There was nothing Miss Sarah could do now. She gritted her teeth and saw Lin Feng, who seemed to be very calm the entire time. Then, Miss Sarah bowed respectfully to Lin Feng and said, "Mr. Lin, please save the Sala family." "Huh, Mr. Lin?" Immediately, everyone's gaze was focused on the unfamiliar face. The three quasi-emperors of the Lin family were not so arrogant that they had no sensibility. Their expressions changed slightly. Previously, they already had some doubts about Miss Sarah's respect for Lin Feng. And now, hearing Miss Sarah ask Lin Feng for help with their own ears, they immediately guessed it. This Mr. Lin was very likely a stronger reinforcement Miss Sarah had invited over. Although they did not know how strong Mr. Lin was, someone who could be trusted by Miss Sarah must be at least a quasi-emperor, or even a top-notch quasi-emperor. Hence, Lin Huanyu took a step forward and said in a low voice, "Mr. Lin, please do not interfere in the matter between my Lin family and the Sala family. I will definitely be very grateful to Mr. Lin." Lin Feng glanced at Lin Huanyu expressionlessly, then said calmly, "Let the Lin ancestor talk to me." "Huh? Our ancestor?" Before Lin Huanyu could finish speaking, Mr. Lin made a casual grab. "Get lost!" A palm descended from above with overwhelming force. It grabbed Lin Huanyu, Wilson, the three quasi-emperors, and the other Lin family members before casually throwing them out of planet Sala. The scene was so silent that one could hear a pin drop. In the cosmos, Lin Huanyu, the three quasi-emperors, Wilson, and the others were all thrown into the cosmos in a sorry state. However, they were not injured, and no one had died. "Who exactly is Mr. Lin?" "Wilson, you're Sarah's biological brother. Don't you know Mr. Lin?" Lin Huanyu's expression was a little dark as he stared coldly at Wilson. The Lin family had invested so much in Wilson for a reason. They did not want to come up empty-handed. Wilson was also very aggrieved. He shook his head and said, "Sarah wouldn't tell me anything about the affairs of the family. But I've never seen or heard of this Mr. Lin. Humph, no matter what this Mr. Lin's background is, from the looks of it, he's showing mercy to us and doesn't dare to injure us. Looks like he's also afraid of Ancestor. Lin Huanyu stared in the direction of planet Sala with a dark expression. They were not thrown far away, and could still see planet Sala from afar. No, young Master Lin, it's not because Mr. Lin is wary of us. It's because he doesn't pay us any mind. The three quasi-emperors all shook their heads. One of them spoke with lingering fear. What do you mean? Lin Huanyu was a little confused. He only knew that the other party had thrown them out, but they were not injured and no one had died. If this was not showing mercy, what was? The quasi-emperor of the Lin family smiled weakly and said, Young Master Lin, that Mr. Lin is definitely not someone we can provoke. His gaze was calm the entire time, and there's not even a trace of killing intent. Do you know why that is? Young Master Lin, think about it. How can an elephant be interested in ants? That Mr. Lin never even paid any regard to us. In his eyes, we're insignificant. He's not showing mercy to us just because of the Ancestor, but because there's no need. Even now, the three quasi-emperors still had lingering fear. That Mr. Lin was definitely a Grand Emperor, a genuine Grand Emperor. Then what should we do now? Lin Huanyu was quite convinced by these three quasi-emperors. Return to planet OM. Also, inform Ancestor of this news as soon as possible. Since that Mr. Lin asked Ancestor to meet him personally, it's probably not just talk. Everything will depend on Ancestor's decision. Hence, everyone from the Lin family returned to planet OM with a heavy heart. Only Lin Huanyu was still reluctant. However, if that Mr. Lin was really a Grand Emperor, this matter would get troublesome. Ancestor would make the call on everything. Is he dead? I think they've been driven away. Mr. Lin, with just a palm strike. Planet Sala fell silent, but everyone quickly came back to their senses. The people from the Lin family had already disappeared without a trace. Mr. Lin had thrown them out of planet Sala with a single palm strike. Moreover, he had specifically asked the Lin family's Ancestor to come. How bold was this? Seeing Lin Feng attack, Sarah finally heaved a sigh of relief. She bowed to Lin Feng again and said, Thank you for your help, Senior. There's no need to thank me. Relying on the Sala family alone might not be enough to find the person I'm looking for. If the Lin family is involved, however, the chances are not bad. Sarah's heart skipped a beat. Could Lin Feng be planning to get the Lin family to help find Divine Heart? If that was the case, the Sala family would have to hurry. Once the Lin family found the news of Divine Heart first, the Sala family would really be in danger. Lin Feng did not even need to do anything. As long as Lin Feng stayed out of it, it would be difficult for the Sala family to contend with the Lin family. Seemingly sensing the anxiety in Sarah's heart, Lin Feng said indifferently, Don't worry. If Divine Heart is found, I can guarantee that the Sala family will be safe. Thank you, Senior. Although there was Lin Feng's assurance, Miss Sarah was not completely at ease. So what if there was Lin Feng's assurance? What Sarah wanted was for the Sala family to rise again. Hence, the Sala family had to find clues about Divine Heart as soon as possible. Miss Sarah left. Lin Feng was alone in the spacious room. Lin Feng did not pay much attention to today's farce. In his eyes, it was indeed just a farce. His goal was to find Divine Heart, not to help the Sala family. The matter between the Sala family and the Lin family had nothing to do with him. Of course, if the Sala family could really find clues to Divine Heart, he would not mind giving the Sala family some favors. I can't place all my hopes on Divine Heart either. My own strength is more important. Lin Feng currently possessed 4 ultimate laws, namely the law of tides, the law of annihilation, the law of space, and the law of life. The law of tides and the law of annihilation were one thing. They could only be considered characteristic laws. The law of life and the law of space, however, were 2 of the 3 great laws. Currently, he was only lacking the law of time, and it was still shrouded in mystery. Lin Feng had no clue either. Lin Feng had already personally sensed the principles behind the laws of tides, annihilation, and space. They were the ultimate forms of laws. Mastering a complete principle was very difficult. Still, no matter how difficult it was, there was still hope. As for the law of life, however, Lin Feng still had no clue about the principle of life at the moment. Right now, Lin Feng was focused on comprehending the laws of space, tides, and annihilation. If he could take another step forward and comprehend the three complete principles, Lin Feng would have a chance of metamorphosis. If he wanted to undergo 9 life transitions, comprehending a complete principle was indispensable. Of course, even if he comprehended a complete principle, Lin Feng might not be able to undergo 9 life transitions. Could only be said that there was a high chance. If Lin Feng thought further, he would probably continue to strengthen his combat body until he reached consummation. Only then would metamorphosis be the most perfect. Time. Lin Feng needed time. Coincidentally, time was the last thing the current Lin Feng lacked. On planet OM, Lin Huanyu, and the 3 quasi-emperors all came to a secret chamber. Boom! Suddenly, the secret chamber opened. The expressions of the 3 quasi-emperors and Lin Huanyu became incomparably respectful. "Welcome, ancestor." The 3 quasi-emperors and Lin Huanyu hurriedly bowed. A figure gradually walked out of the secret chamber. He resembled Lin Huanyu a little, and appeared like a middle-aged man. However, he gave off a very austere aura. He was the Grand Emperor ancestor of the Lin family. The ancestor frowned and said, "I'm trying to comprehend the ultimate law in the hope of becoming a top-notch Grand Emperor. I've already instructed you not to disturb me unless there's especially important matters." The ancestor's expression was a little impatient. His cultivation had been interrupted. How could he possibly be happy? "Tell me, what's going on?" Only when the ancestor made the inquiry did Lin Huanyu dare to look up and answer carefully. "Ancestor, we were preparing to annex the Sala family. If we can obtain the Sala family's legacy over billions of years, I believe it will also be very helpful for your comprehension of the ultimate law." "Have you succeeded?" The ancestor took the legacy of the Sala family quite seriously. After all, Grand Emperor Sala was a famous top-notch Grand Emperor back then. The legacy he left behind must be extraordinary. Lin Huanyu hurriedly shook his head and said, "Ancestor, everything was going smoothly initially. The cosmic array on planet Sala was destroyed by Wilson. Although for some reason, Sarah's strength has soared to the level of a quasi-emperor, she's still under our control. The only accident was a mysterious person Sarah brought back. Sarah called him Mr. Lin. Mr. Lin threw us out of planet Sala in one fell swoop. Even the 3 quasi-emperors could not resist at all. Hence, we suspect that Mr. Lin is a Grand Emperor. Mr. Lin also asked us to send a message to Ancestor, asking you to make a trip to planet Sala." With that, Lin Huanyu did not say anything else. Everything was up to the ancestor. "Mr. Lin, that's just as well. It's been so many years since I've been able to exercise properly. Meeting other Grand Emperors might actually allow me to gain something. All of you, prepare yourselves and follow me to planet Sala." Lin Huanyu was overjoyed. With the ancestor around, the Sala family probably would not be able to escape this disaster, no matter what. Even if Mr. Lin was really a Grand Emperor, so what? Ancestor Lin was not an ordinary Grand Emperor. He had even killed a true Grand Emperor before. Moreover, in recent years, Ancestor Lin had been trying to comprehend the ultimate law. Once he succeeded in comprehending it, he would not be far from becoming a top-notch Grand Emperor. Who could contend against a top-notch Grand Emperor? If they really succeeded with a top-notch Grand Emperor like the ancestor presiding over it, the Lin family might not be inferior to the Sala family back then, and might even be more prosperous. "Sarah, you won't be able to run forever." A sharp glint flashed across Lin Huanyu's eyes. The seemingly calm cosmos was ultimately not calm. What would come was inevitable. Phew! It was as if a gust of wind had blown through the cosmos and reached planet Sala. But how could there be wind in the universe? Everyone on planet Sala looked up at the cosmos. They had only gotten a few days of peace. A few days was nothing compared to the vast universe. However, for once, the members of the Sala family felt peace from the depths of their hearts. Even though the cosmic array had been broken, and it was very difficult to fix it in a short period of time, their hearts were at peace. This was because currently there was Mr. Lin guarding planet Sala. There had long been rumors on planet Sala that Mr. Lin was a Grand Emperor. With a Grand Emperor guarding over planet Sala, it would definitely be incomparably safe. The wind is coming. There was no lack of discerning people on planet Sala. When the wind gradually blew over in the dark and quiet cosmos, their expressions all became very solemn. There would not be wind in the universe, but now, a violent gust was howling, blowing from the depths of the universe. There was only one reason. Law. A powerful law must have stirred up violent gales in the universe. They're here. Lin Feng looked up at the cosmos, his expression as calm as ever. The Sala family had long been shaken. Led by Miss Sarah, all the planetary lifeforms were mobilized. They stared intently at the cosmos with incomparably solemn gazes. Wind. Violent wind. However, in the eyes of the cultivators of the Sala family, those were not wind, but laws, the law of tides. That ancestor of the Lin family had comprehended the law of tides. As the wind grew stronger and stronger, there seemed to be faint rumbles coming from the cosmos. As they approached, even planet Sala was shaking. Many people's faces were pale. Clearly, they had sensed the terrifying aura in the depths of the universe. Boom! Finally, everyone saw a tide rising in the universe, sweeping over like a wave. A figure was standing proudly on the tide, slowly approaching on the cosmic tide. It's indeed the Lin family's ancestor. Ancestor Lin is here. Ancestor Lin does not usually leave planet OM lightly. Once he leaves, blood would definitely be spilled. Can planet Sala be saved? With the boundless power emitted by Ancestor Lin and the surging tides, he looked simply like an invincible demonic god. Previously, they had been confident about Mr. Lin guarding planet Sala. But now, looking at the Lin family's ancestor, who stood like a demonic god, even if Mr. Lin was a Grand Emperor, could he resist Ancestor Lin? Who is Mr. Lin? I specially exited seclusion and came here just to answer Mr. Lin's invitation. Ancestor Lin's voice spread throughout the entire planet. At this moment, everyone knew that Ancestor Lin had arrived. He might destroy the entire planet. For a moment, many cultivators on planet Sala panicked. All those who could leave the planet rushed to leave the planet as if they had gone mad. Ancestor Lin was notorious for his viciousness. He was a dignified Grand Emperor. Now that he had arrived with such fanfare, even if the Sala family could resist it, the aftershock would still kill countless people. Hence, they chose to leave. When Miss Sarah saw this, her expression was stiff. She did not blame those ordinary people for leaving planet Sala. Faced with the threat of Ancestor Lin, even the members of the Sala family would be swayed, let alone others. However, she had to hold out now. Moreover, Ancestor Lin was clearly targeting Mr. Lin this time. Heh! You don't dare to come out anymore, do you? Lin Huanyu glared fiercely at planet Sala. It was where he had lost all his dignity and was thrown out by someone. He was also a genius of the Lin family who had a chance of becoming a Grand Emperor in the future. When had he ever suffered such humiliation? Now that he saw the ancestor arriving on the cosmic tide, looking as if he could drown planet Sala in an instant, Lin Huanyu was overjoyed. However, the Mr. Lin on planet Sala never appeared. Ancestor Lin frowned. He seemed rather displeased. He was a dignified Grand Emperor with a notorious reputation. He had comprehended the advanced law of tides and was just a little away from comprehending the ultimate law of tides, with a chance of becoming a top-notch Grand Emperor. Why would he pay any heed to ordinary Grand Emperors? However, this mysterious Mr. Lin still never appeared. This could not help but infuriate Ancestor Lin. Mr. Lin. Suddenly, Miss Sarah saw Lin Feng walk out of the room. A trace of worry appeared on her face. Even though she was certain that Lin Feng was very powerful, Ancestor Lin had a vicious reputation and was a famous Grand Emperor. No matter what, she was still a little worried. Lin Feng was still expressionless. He glanced at Ancestor Lin, who still lurked like a demonic god in the cosmos, and said calmly, "Reseed." "Huh." Ancestor Lin was a little confused. Even the Sala family was a little confused. Reseed? What did he mean by reseed? As soon as Lin Feng finished speaking, the surging law of tides in the universe suddenly shook. Boom! Even Ancestor Lin was shocked. Then his entire body stiffened, and his heart could not help but shiver. Originally, the surging cosmic tides were enough to drown and destroy hundreds of planets. However, as soon as Mr. Lin finished speaking, the surging cosmic tides melted like ice and snow, quickly dissipated, and finally disappeared completely. No matter how Ancestor Lin mobilized the law of tides, it seemed to be useless, as if it was suppressed by some force. The law followed his command. His word was law. With just a word, the law retreated. Only those top-notch Grand Emperors who had comprehended ultimate laws could truly make their words law. His word is law. Even I cannot mobilize the law of tides at all. He can easily suppress the advanced law of tides. Could Mr. Lin have comprehended the ultimate law of tides? Ancestor Lin was immensely shocked. He did not expect that Mr. Lin could actually make the law follow his command. Mr. Lin had comprehended the ultimate law of tides, which happened to counter his own law of tides. If it was just the ultimate law of tides, it would be fine. At most, he would use his combat body to fight head-on. However, all Grand Emperors who could comprehend the ultimate planetary law were top-notch Grand Emperors. A top-notch Grand Emperor, Mr. Lin, was very likely a top-notch Grand Emperor. Facing a top-notch Grand Emperor, Ancestor Lin did not even have the courage to resist. At this thought, all the anger and arrogance of Ancestor Lin dissipated. Ancestor Lin Huanyu stepped forward. He still did not know what was going on, and thought that Ancestor Lin had taken the initiative to withdraw the cosmic tide. Retreat, retreat! Ancestor Lin immediately berated loudly, as if facing a formidable enemy. Ancestor, get lost! Ancestor Lin appeared very impatient and rebuked Lin Huanyu directly. He even had half a mind to kill Lin Huanyu now. How did he manage to provoke a top-notch Grand Emperor? That was a top-notch Grand Emperor. His words and actions were almost unparalleled, dominating the cosmos without match. If such a Grand Emperor was alone and only traveled the cosmos, it would be a piece of cake for him to destroy the Lin family. Moreover, absolutely no one would stand up for the Lin family. Ancestor Lin could not imagine how the Sala family could still manage to get the help of a top-notch Grand Emperor to guard planet Sala. If he had known that the Sala family had such connections, he would never have dared to plot to annex planet Sala. Ancestor Lin, since you are already here, why don't you come down for a chat? Lin Feng's voice was very calm, as if it was echoing in everyone's ears. However, Ancestor Lin's expression was respectful, and he did not dare to disobey at all. He immediately retracted the aura on his body and berated the Lin family behind him. No one is to take a single step onto planet Sala without my order. With that, Ancestor Lin flew into planet Sala as quickly as possible. Ancestor Lin flew down from the cosmos and landed in the Sala family. He saw Lin Feng almost immediately. Others might not be able to tell, but Ancestor Lin was a Grand Emperor himself. How could he not tell? Ancestor Lin's entire body shook, and his heart turned incomparably cold. It was a top-notch Grand Emperor, a genuine top-notch Grand Emperor. He sensed an aura as vast as the universe from Lin Feng. It was incomparably deep and terrifying. Even the few top-notch Grand Emperors he had seen back then seemed far less terrifying than this Mr. Lin in front of him. Ancestor Lin knew very well that before this mysterious Mr. Lin, even escaping was just a pipe dream. Greetings, Your Majesty. The Lin family's ancestor took a deep breath and bowed respectfully in front of Lin Feng, like a junior. His prestige as a dignified Grand Emperor was nowhere to be found now. Seeing the cautious attitude of Ancestor Lin, the members of the Sala family seemed to be in disbelief. All of them widened their eyes, confirming that they were looking at the esteemed Ancestor Lin. But no matter how one looked at it, He was indeed Ancestor Lin, an authentic Grand Emperor. However, this Ancestor Lin, who had given the Sala family so much trouble, had actually humbled himself and really come to meet Mr. Lin. By now, even the most foolish person knew that Mr. Lin was more than just a Grand Emperor, as they had imagined. This was especially the case when Ancestor Lin had shouted, "His word is law." The law followed his command. Even ordinary planetary lifeforms could claim that the law followed their command, as long as they had comprehended laws. However, there was only one possibility that could make even Ancestor Lin, a dignified Grand Emperor, exclaim, "His word is law, the ultimate planetary law." It was very likely that Mr. Lin had grasped the ultimate planetary law. The Sala family had a long history behind their foundation. They were not an ordinary family. They knew very well what the ultimate planetary law represented. If a Grand Emperor comprehended the ultimate planetary law, the chance that they were a top-notch Grand Emperor was basically more than 99%. A top-notch Grand Emperor. Even back when the Sala family was at its peak, when Grand Emperor Sala was still alive, Grand Emperor Sala was a top-notch Grand Emperor. Even the bloodline left behind by a top-notch Grand Emperor could be passed down for a long time. Even if a top-notch Grand Emperor did not have any faction, they themselves were a huge faction that could not be ignored. Although Miss Sarah had some guesses previously, she was still very shocked when she confirmed that the Mr. Lin in front of her was a top-notch Grand Emperor. At this thought, everyone stopped being so bewildered about Ancestor Lin's attitude. Although the Lin family's ancestor was also a Grand Emperor, how could ordinary Grand Emperors be comparable to top-notch Grand Emperors? The difference between the two was as great as the difference between 5 life transitions and 6 life transitions. It would not be an exaggeration to say that it was like a natural chasm. Only by becoming a top-notch Grand Emperor could one be considered to be standing at the peak of the universe. Apart from the high and mighty divine kings, top-notch Grand Emperors were the strongest entities in the universe. Ancestor Lin Feng spoke, his tone very calm. "Your Majesty, what are your orders?" Ancestor Lin's attitude was extremely respectful. Facing a top-notch Grand Emperor, none of his arrogance remained. The difference between an ordinary Grand Emperor and a top-notch Grand Emperor was like heaven and earth. He did not dare to have any second thoughts at all. "The Sala family is working for me now." Ancestor Lin's heart trembled, but he still forced a smile and said, "I understand. I'll immediately get the Lin family to prepare generous gifts in apology to Miss Sarah. Also, as for Wilson, I'll order the Lin family to send him back safely." Ancestor Lin was trying his best to make amends. Otherwise, if Mr. Lin was angered, the entire Lin family and even Planet OM would be completely erased. "Miss Sarah, what do you think? If you're not satisfied, you can make requests." Lin Feng glanced at Miss Sarah. Miss Sarah's heart was in turmoil. The Sala family members behind were even more excited. They only wished they could get Miss Sarah to make all kinds of demanding requests, and make the Lin family pay a huge price. However, Miss Sarah took a deep breath and said in a low voice, "Everything is up to Senior." A trace of approval appeared in Lin Feng's eyes as he nodded in appreciation. The rest of the Sala family felt as if they had been doused with cold water as they came to a realization. Ancestor Lin was not afraid of the Sala family, but of Mr. Lin. Everything was ultimately up to Mr. Lin. "Then that will do. Things will be handled as Ancestor Lin proposed. Your Majesty, please be assured. I'll make the arrangements immediately." Ancestor Lin did not want to stay here for another moment. The longer he stayed in front of a top-notch Grand Emperor, the more danger he might be in. Who knew when Lin Feng would attack him? Lin Feng looked deeply at Ancestor Lin, then said with a smile, "The Sala family works for me. Is the Lin family willing to work for me?" "Working for your Majesty?" Ancestor Lin's eyes narrowed slightly, but he immediately realized that Lin Feng was giving them a chance. "Yes, the Lin family is naturally willing to work for your Majesty." Ancestor Lin immediately nodded in excitement and assented. This was no trivial matter. Look at how Mr. Lin treated the Sala family. Just by working for him, the Sala family enjoyed all kinds of benefits. If the Lin family did their best to work for Lin Feng, why would they need to be afraid that Lin Feng would attack the Lin family? Moreover, this might even be an opportunity for the Lin family. Seeing that Ancestor Lin had agreed and looked overjoyed, Miss Sarah frowned slightly. She was on the cusp of saying something, but hesitated. In the end, she did not say anything. She knew very well that the entire Sala family was reliant on Lin Feng now. If she angered Lin Feng, there was no need for Lin Feng to do anything. Just the Lin family alone was not something the Sala family could deal with. Moreover, if Lin Feng wanted to find someone, it was indeed unlikely to make any gains by relying on the Sala family alone. Things would be different if the Lin family was involved. Even if Miss Sarah was unwilling to admit it, she also knew that the Lin family was at its peak now. Their power on planet Lightshower was definitely stronger than the Sala family. This way, it would be easier for Lin Feng to obtain clues. Very good, Miss Sarah. Then, I'll have to trouble you to explain my request to Ancestor Lin in detail. Yes, Senior. Then, Miss Sarah explained Lin Feng's request in detail. Ancestor Lin memorized everything by heart, and prepared to prioritize it as the Lin family's most important matter to deal with as soon as he returned. Understood. Senior, don't worry. I will mobilize all the factions of the Lin family on planet Lightshower. I will definitely find clues regarding Divine Heart for you. Lin Feng nodded and said calmly, All right, I'll wait for your good news. After that, Lin Feng added, This is not how the law of tides should be used. Ha! Ancestor Lin's expression was confused. But then, Lin Feng flicked his finger. Boom! Immediately, the vast cosmos seemed to shake all of a sudden. Even space itself was trembling. A terrifying tide blotted out everything, wreaking havoc in the universe. It was at least 100 times stronger than the cosmic tide mobilized by Ancestor Lin. The overwhelming cosmic tide made everyone's hearts tremble slightly. A top-notch Grand Emperor, he was definitely a top-notch Grand Emperor. Moreover, even among top-notch Grand Emperors, he was probably very powerful. Looking at how Lin Feng casually mobilized the cosmic tide, just the cosmic tide alone could probably easily shatter the combat body of a Grand Emperor. This power was simply daunting. Even if Grand Emperor Sala was resurrected, he probably could not exceed this. When Ancestor Lin saw this scene, he was the most shocked, because all that he thought about day and night was comprehending the law of tides. Now that he had seen the ultimate law of tides with his own eyes, how could he not be excited? Thank you for your guidance, Your Majesty. With that, Ancestor Lin bade farewell and returned to planet OM with everyone from the Lin family. Ancestor Lin Huanyu was trembling in fear. Looking at the solemn expression of Ancestor Lin, he suddenly had a bad premonition. Lin Huanyu, you will stay in the Lin family's confinement room for the rest of your days. What? Ancestor, please spare me. Lin Huanyu knelt on the ground and kowtowed desperately. The Lin family's confinement room was nothing good. It was just a tiny room with arrays that could imprison any cultivator below the level of a Grand Emperor. Once locked up in the confinement room, unless one could become a Grand Emperor, they would remain imprisoned until they die. Once locked up in the confinement room, Lin Huanyu would be finished. However, how could Ancestor Lin forgive Lin Huanyu just because he kowtowed and begged for mercy? Perhaps Lin Huanyu was not in the wrong, but faced with the anger of a top-notch Grand Emperor, Ancestor Lin would not choose to take risks no matter what. What are you waiting for? Take him away. Ancestor, please spare me. Men immediately came forward and brought Lin Huanyu away. Even the 3 quasi-emperors were trembling in fear. However, they were ultimately quasi-emperors. Ancestor Lin sighed and said, All of you are also great contributors to our Lin family. But this time, the Lin family was almost destroyed. Moreover, no one knows if that Mr. Lin was really offended. Therefore, I'll have to trouble the 3 of you to guard the mining planet. The hearts of the 3 quasi-emperors trembled. The mining planet was the planet with the most arduous environment, and was a place for exiles. The 3 dignified quasi-emperors were also exiled now. However, they knew that with how prudent Ancestor Lin was, he would not possibly take the risk. They only had themselves to blame for offending a top-notch Grand Emperor. They were already sacrificial pawns to the Lin family, and were already very lucky to not be locked in the confinement room too by Ancestor Lin. Thank you, Ancestor. The 3 quasi-emperors were also brought away. Ancestor Lin shook his head helplessly. If he had a choice, he wouldn't do this either. However, they had offended a top-notch Grand Emperor. He had no choice but to be cautious. However, when he thought of Mr. Lin's last words, Ancestor Lin's heart burned with passion again. Investigate the clues to Divine Heart? Although Planet Lightshower is not the place where Lin family is the most influential, we're still better than the Sala family there. If we find clues first, Mr. Lin will definitely be very satisfied. Ancestor Lin's heart burned with desire. This could be considered a blessing in disguise, and he had obtained the opportunity to work for a top-notch Grand Emperor. If he could find the clues first, Mr. Lin would definitely reward him generously. Just the demonstration of the ultimate law of tides this time was enough to tempt Ancestor Lin. If Mr. Lin could give him some pointers, he might be able to make a new breakthrough in his comprehension of the law of tides. Men, mobilize all the Lin family's forces to investigate on Planet Lightshower. Ancestor Lin immediately began to arrange for his subordinates to investigate traces of Divine Heart. They must spare no effort to find the clues before the Sala family did. Sister, I'm sorry. Wilson bit his lip and knelt in front of Miss Sarah with a woeful expression. The Lin family had released Wilson today, along with many gifts. All of them were to compensate the Sala family. They were very sincere. However, Miss Sarah also knew that all of this was because of Mr. Lin. He was why Ancestor Lin was so sincere. Otherwise, the Sala family was nothing. Miss Sarah did not even look at those gifts. She glared intently at Wilson. It really pained her. She had showered Wilson with love since he was young, and did not even want Wilson to shoulder the burden of the family. Moreover, she granted almost all of Wilson's requests. It was because Wilson might be the closest family she had. But what happened in the end? Wilson had betrayed her, and the family, elders, sentenced him according to the rules for betraying the family. After a long while, Miss Sarah seemed to feel weary as well. She waved her hand for the elders to decide. These elders all had wisdom that came with experience. If he was really sentenced according to the rules for betraying the family, considering Wilson's actions, he would be dead for sure. However, no matter how much Miss Sarah hated Wilson now and how much her heart ached, he was still Miss Sarah's only brother. Moreover, Miss Sarah was the only quasi-emperor in the Sala family now. She was their only hope. They could not let Miss Sarah's only family die. Miss Sarah, according to our discussion, although Wilson betrayed the family, it did not lead to serious consequences. Hence, his crime is not punishable by death. He is to be locked in the family's secret underground chamber. If Wilson can become a venerable one day, he can be released to atone for his crimes. The elders were clearly giving favors to Miss Sarah. The wrong Wilson had committed was more than just serious. If not for Mr. Lin's help, the Sala family would have been completely finished. Miss Sarah's face darkened. She said coldly, "There's no need to worry about me. How can becoming a venerable offset his crime? As long as he doesn't become a Grand Emperor, he'll stay locked in the underground secret chamber forever." Wilson's eyes widened. If it were just about becoming a venerable, there might be very little hope, but it was not impossible. After all, he was already a planetary life form. Perhaps after being locked up for hundreds or thousands of years, he would be able to leave the secret chamber. But a Grand Emperor? That was not something that could be achieved through talent alone. For one to have a chance of becoming a Grand Emperor, it also required opportunities, resources, and so on. Moreover, Wilson did not even have talent. If he was really locked in an underground secret chamber, he would probably never be able to come out again. No, sister, I'm sorry. Unfortunately, Miss Sarah was unmoved by Wilson's pleading. She still ordered men to take Wilson away. Perhaps imprisonment for life was already the best outcome for Wilson. The elders looked at each other. They could all feel Miss Sarah's determination. They did not dare to plead on Wilson's behalf. In fact, if not for Sarah, they would not hesitate to sentence Wilson to death as a warning to others. Miss Sarah, what should we do next? The Lin family has already taken action. Miss Sarah closed her eyes slightly and said in a low voice, Ancestor Lin is not an ordinary person. Mr. Lin is a top-notch Grand Emperor. Befriending Mr. Lin is a huge opportunity. Ancestor Lin still wants to become a top-notch Grand Emperor, so he will definitely search for clues on planet Lightshower at all costs. Although our Sala family is not as influential as the Lin family, we are one step ahead and already have the advantage. Immediately mobilize all the power of the family. No matter what, we must find clues regarding Divine Heart in the shortest time possible. This concerns the survival of our Sala family. Miss Sarah, please be assured. We'll mobilize all the forces of the Sala family immediately. The elders were also worried. Meeting Lin Feng was both an opportunity and a challenge. If the Lin family was the first to find the clues Lin Feng needed, all the efforts the Sala family had made previously would be in vain. This chance for the Sala family to rise was not easy to come by. They could not give it up. No matter how the Sala family and the Lin family secretly competed, it was a good thing for Lin Feng. At least with competition, both parties would be more diligent. He believed that it would not be long before there was news of Divine Heart. Indeed, in just a month, Lin Feng received a message from Miss Sarah. They had found clues on Divine Heart. At the same time, Lin Feng also received a message from Ancestor Lin. He had also found clues regarding Divine Heart. The information from the two sources was similar and only differed in some subtle clues. However, this was just as well. They could be cross-checked with each other. Divine Heart, you can't escape. After reading the clues provided by the Sala family and the Lin family, Lin Feng understood. He decided to make a trip to planet Lightshower personally. Senior, you're going to planet Lightshower? Miss Sarah was a little surprised, but also a little disappointed. Once Lin Feng left, wouldn't the safety of the Sala family be compromised? However, at the same time, she knew very well that Lin Feng could not stay in the Sala family forever. Unfortunately, Miss Sarah had yet to become a Grand Emperor and could not protect the Sala family. Fortunately, during this period of time, the cosmic array had already been repaired by the Sala family, and they now had some ability to protect themselves. That's right. Since you've already obtained the clues on Divine Heart, how can I not make a trip personally? Moreover, didn't you encounter trouble? Lin Feng said calmly. On the other hand, Miss Sarah replied awkwardly, Senior, we did find clues, but it involves a Grand Emperor on planet Lightshower. So, it's fine. Your Sala family isn't the only one that encountered trouble. You see, the Lin family encountered trouble too. Ha! Miss Sarah looked up and realized that Ancestor Lin had already personally arrived at planet Sala. Greetings, Your Majesty. Ancestor Lin glanced at Miss Sarah, wondering what Lin Feng's plan was for summoning him here. Lin Feng glanced at the two of them, then said indifferently, The two of you have both obtained clues, but you've both also encountered some trouble. I'm going to make a trip to planet Lightshower personally. Are the two of you willing to come with me? Yes, we are willing. How could the two of them not be willing? Lin Feng was a top-notch Grand Emperor. As long as he did not face a divine king, what was there to be afraid of? Moreover, the two of them were indeed in trouble this time. The clues were cut off. When they came upon a Grand Emperor during the investigation, they could no longer follow up. They could only let Lin Feng take action personally. Very good. If you are willing, we will leave now. Lin Feng took the spaceship arranged by the Sala family directly. It was not that he did not want to warp space, but that there was no need at all. He was going for an investigation now. There was no need to be so high profile. Moreover, it was very likely that Divine Heart had already left. Lin Feng could only take his time to search for clues. In the beginning, Miss Sarah was a little worried, but on careful thought, as long as Lin Feng was around, the Lin family probably would not dare to attack the Sala family. Not to mention that the cosmic array of the Sala family was very strong. As a top-notch Grand Emperor, Lin Feng himself was an unpredictable factor. Who knew when Lin Feng would return to planet Sala? In fact, Seeing how close Miss Sarah was to Lin Feng, the Lin family's ancestor could not help but speculate darkly if Lin Feng had already taken a fancy to Miss Sarah. If that was really the case, wouldn't the Lin family be courting death by attacking the Sala family? Having thought through this, Miss Sarah was completely at ease as she followed Lin Feng to planet Lightshower. After flying for a few days in the spaceship, planet Lightshower could be seen from afar. Planet Lightshower was a busy trading planet. With Divine King Lightshower presiding over it, it was also incomparably safe. Hence, it did not even have a cosmic array. Anyone could enter planet Lightshower at any time. Even the countless large chambers of commerce in the Pelagios domain had strongholds on planet Lightshower. There were countless rare treasures. The Lin family and the Sala family also extended their influences to planet Lightshower in order to do business more conveniently. In the Pelagios domain, the strongest faction was not a certain family, but the 10 major chambers of commerce. The 10 major chambers of commerce dominated the Pelagios domain and controlled more than 80% of the trade in the Pelagios domain. They had monstrous authority. Every chamber of commerce had a divine king presiding over it. Only then could they spread their business throughout the entire Pelagios domain. No cultivator in the Pelagios domain would dare to offend the 10 major chambers of commerce. So, the last clue was cut off at the Moro Chamber of Commerce? Lin Feng was listening to Miss Sarah and Ancestor Lin's report. The clues were cut off at the Moro Chamber of Commerce. Miss Sarah hurriedly said, "Senior, we did only find out that Divine Heart had been to the Moro Chamber of Commerce, and stayed there for a long time. After he entered the Moro Chamber of Commerce, there were no longer any clues on Divine Heart." Ancestor Lin also smiled weakly and said, "The Moro Chamber of Commerce is one of the 10 major chambers of commerce in the Pelagios domain. Experts are common there. Even its branch on planet Lightshower has 2 Grand Emperors presiding over it. They are the President and the Vice President. When it comes to Grand Emperors, there's nothing our Lin family can do, let alone when there's the Moro Chamber of Commerce behind these 2 Grand Emperors." Moro Chamber of Commerce, huh? Lin Feng muttered softly. All kinds of thoughts flashed through his mind. Divine Heart had likely gone to the Moro Chamber of Commerce to purchase something. As one of the 10 major chambers of commerce, the Moro Chamber of Commerce must have a lot of all kinds of rare treasures hoarded on a trading planet like planet Lightshower. It was very likely that Divine Heart was here to purchase these rare treasures to recover from the injuries to the Divine Emperor's heart. As for Divine Heart never coming out after entering the Moro Chamber of Commerce, there were 2 possibilities. Either Divine Heart was still in the Moro Chamber of Commerce, or there was a spatial teleportation array in the Moro Chamber of Commerce that allowed him to teleport away directly. Although spatial teleportation seemed very complicated, and even ordinary divine kings might not be able to create it, the Moro Chamber of Commerce was one of the 10 major chambers of commerce. How wealthy was it? How powerful was it? It was not impossible for every important branch to establish a spatial teleportation array. Looks like I really have to make a trip myself. Lin Feng took a deep breath. The Moro Chamber of Commerce was one of the 10 major chambers of commerce. Forget about the Sala family and the Lin family, even a family 10 times stronger could do nothing about it. "Senior, are you really going to the Moro Chamber of Commerce?" Scared, Lin Feng looked at Miss Sarah and Lin Ancestor with a half-smile. Now, the 2 of them were really a little frightened. From the looks of it, Lin Feng was going to clash with the Moro Chamber of Commerce. If a conflict really broke out, Lin Feng might be fine. As a dignified top-notch Grand Emperor, where could he not go? However, the 2 of them would be in trouble. Even their families would be in trouble. Facing the Moro Chamber of Commerce, even Ancestor Lin, a Grand Emperor, was nothing. Ancestor Lin said carefully, "Mr. Lin, can we consider this more thoroughly? This Moro Chamber of Commerce is quite powerful. I'm afraid if things blow up, there won't be any benefits." Ancestor Lin was really somewhat regretful now. If he had known earlier, why would he follow Lin Feng here? However, on second thought, if he had not followed Lin Feng previously, it was hard to say what kind of wrath the Lin family would face from Lin Feng. He was in a dilemma now, and there was nothing he could do. "Don't worry. I'm here to find someone, not to cause trouble for the Moro Chamber of Commerce." Lin Feng seemed to have sensed their unease and said with a smile, Miss Sarah and Ancestor Lin looked at each other, their eyes filled with anxiety and unease. However, since they were already here, there was no way out. They could only bite the bullet and follow Lin Feng to the Moro Chamber of Commerce. The spaceship gradually docked at the port of planet Lightshower. Lin Feng left the port with only Miss Sarah and Ancestor Lin. As soon as they left the port, they saw a huge signboard. Moro Chamber of Commerce. A smile appeared on Lin Feng's lips. The Moro Chamber of Commerce was right outside the port, so there was no need for him to make a trip. Hence, Lin Feng strode towards the Moro Chamber of Commerce. The Moro Chamber of Commerce had countless miraculous items, cultivation techniques, and artifacts. As long as one had money, they could buy everything. The so-called money was energy, the common currency in the universe. No matter what kind of energy it was, the purer the energy, the harder the currency. Energy was the common currency for both technological and cultivation civilizations. Forget about half the cultivators below planetary lifeforms, so what if they cultivated to the level of top-notch Grand Emperors or even Divine Kings? They also urgently need a large amount of chaotic power. What was chaotic energy? It was a kind of energy as well, just a higher-level energy. Hence, energy was universal to all civilizations in the universe. At this moment, a man walked into the Moro Chamber of Commerce with a few young and beautiful women. Young Master Xiao, what do you wish to buy? Our Moro Chamber of Commerce has everything you need. It seemed like the staff of the Chamber of Commerce was very familiar with this young man. Young Master Xiao said casually, "Do you have the heart of Pyrozoa?" Heart of Pyrozoa? Young Master Xiao is really well informed. Our Chamber of Commerce just received the new goods yesterday, and there's only one heart of Pyrozoa. Young Master Xiao is only an ordinary planetary life form at the moment, right? A heart of Pyrozoa can improve young Master Xiao's combat body further, and increase your strength by at least 30%. Young Master Xiao's eyes lit up. To be able to increase the strength of his combat body by 30%, the heart of Pyrozoa must also be top grade. Of course, it was only useful for specific combat bodies. However, young Master Xiao cultivated this kind of specific combat body. As soon as he received the news of the heart of Pyrozoa, he rushed over immediately. How much is the heart of Pyrozoa? Young Master Xiao is an old client of our Moro Chamber of Commerce. We naturally have discounts for you. Young Master Xiao was not short on money. His family was the family of a Grand Emperor, and there was a Grand Emperor who was young Master Xiao's father. However, even if he was the son of a Grand Emperor, this brimstone heart could not be bought just because he wanted to. The Moro Chamber of Commerce gave the price. Young Master Xiao hesitated for a moment, but in the end, he still bought the heart of Pyrozoa. Heart of Pyrozoa? Suddenly, a slightly surprised voice came from outside the door. Following the voice, young Master Xiao saw a beautiful woman. Even though cultivators all had passable appearances and could even change their appearances, natural beauty was definitely different. Moreover, ordinary cultivators usually looked not that far off from each other. Their bearing was more important. The woman young Master Xiao saw had a regal aura. This regal aura was not something ordinary cultivators could possess. She must have powerful strength and a noble bloodline. You know him? Lin Feng looked at Miss Sarah beside him in surprise. Sarah seemed to be very interested in the heart of Pyrozoa. Ancestor Lin smiled and said, "Mr. Lin, the combat body cultivation technique left behind by the Sala family really needs this heart of Pyrozoa. Miss Sarah is also searching for it everywhere." "Oh," Sarah nodded and said, "Senior, I do need the heart of Pyrozoa a lot. It's fine. Buy whatever you like. I don't have money though." Lin Feng shook his head. Why would he bring any money? The so-called money was energy. He could condense a large amount of pure energy anytime. Miss Sarah didn't think too much. She hurriedly asked the staff of Moro Chamber of Commerce, "Do you still have any more heart of Pyrozoa?" The staff of Moro Chamber of Commerce looked at Miss Sarah, then shook his head and said, "Distinguished guest, our Chamber of Commerce had just obtained one heart of Pyrozoa. It has been sold out after young Master Xiao purchased it. If you need it, you can negotiate it with young Master Xiao yourself." Young Master Xiao? Miss Sarah frowned and glanced at young Master Xiao, who had just bought the heart of Pyrozoa. Then, she shook her head. She did not negotiate with young Master Xiao and returned directly to Lin Feng's side. However, young Master Xiao had already been mesmerized by Miss Sarah's demeanor. He could not help but come in front of Miss Sarah and say with a smile, "I was the one who bought the heart of Pyrozoa, but beautiful miss, if you need it, it's not impossible for us to negotiate things." Miss Sarah replied coldly, "No need. I never take the treasured things of others from them. It's fine. We can discuss the price slowly." Seeing young Master Zhao's pestering, Lin Feng frowned. Ancestor Lin observed his expression and snorted coldly. "Where did this brat come from? Get lost." With that, he casually waved his hand and young Master Xiao was pushed to the side. This was with consideration that they were at the Moro Chamber of Commerce. The name of the top 10 chambers of commerce in the Pelagio's domain could dominate all. Otherwise, Ancestor Lin would not have stopped at pushing him away. "Huh? No one on planet Light Shower dares to so impudent to me." Young Master Zhao's expression darkened. The few beautiful women behind him immediately surrounded Lin Feng and the others. Ancestor Lin immediately revealed a trace of killing intent. As a dignified Grand Emperor, he was a figure of great authority in the Lin family. Why would he care about a mere planetary life form? The authority of a Grand Emperor could not be violated. But, in his wrath, Ancestor Lin's aura erupted. Just his aura alone was reminiscent of the cosmos collapsing and Earth trembling, as if cosmic tides were surging over. Ancestor Lin did not attack, but he activated the law of tides and suppressed young Master Xiao and the others. "Law, it's actually law. Save me, save me." Young Master Zhao's face was flushed, but he could not move. Even if it was just the advanced law of tides, how could a mere planetary lifeform break free? Young Master Xiao asked the Moro Chamber of Commerce for help. The staff of the Chamber of Commerce at least knew young Master Xiao well. They naturally knew young Master Zhao's identity. He came from a family with a Grand Emperor. If anything really happened to him, they would probably be in trouble. "Everyone, fighting is not allowed in the Moro Chamber of Commerce." "Is that so? Didn't your Moro Chamber of Commerce ignore it when young Master Xiao ordered people to attack just now?" "Ha!" The staff of the Moro Chamber of Commerce all looked at Lin Feng in surprise. Without a doubt, this ordinary-looking man was actually the one in charge. Moreover, judging from Lin Feng's tone, he was trying to cause trouble at the Moro Chamber of Commerce? "Supervisor. Someone is causing trouble at the Chamber of Commerce." Someone immediately sent a message to the supervisor of the Moro Chamber of Commerce. "Who dares to cause trouble in the territory of the Moro Chamber of Commerce?" As soon as the news was out, a terrifying aura erupted from the Moro Chamber of Commerce, descending into the hall of the Chamber of Commerce like a tsunami. A stern, middle-aged man strode over. He was the manager of Moro Chamber of Commerce, a peak quasi-emperor. However, when he saw how young Master Zhao's body was suppressed by law, the supervisor's expression changed slightly. He could naturally tell that it was an advanced planetary law. Normally, cultivators who could comprehend advanced planetary laws were basically all quasi-emperors, and peak quasi-emperors at that. They might even be Grand Emperors. However, no matter how strong they were, no one could cause trouble in the Moro Chamber of Commerce. "Release him. No matter what grudge there is between you, you will resolve it outside. No fighting is allowed in the Moro Chamber of Commerce. This is the rule," the supervisor of Moro Chamber of Commerce said coldly. His sharp gaze swept over Ancestor Lin. The Moro Chamber of Commerce was ultimately very prestigious. At least, under the sharp gaze of this quasi-emperor supervisor, even Ancestor Lin was a little hesitant. If he were alone, he would definitely have released young Master Xiao long ago. However, Ancestor Lin glanced at Lin Feng and realized that Lin Feng's expression was calm. His expression had not changed at all. Ancestor Lin gritted his teeth and chose not to respond. He continued to use the law to suppress young Master Xiao and the others. "Ha!" The supervisor contemplated it. As if he had come to a realization, he raised his head suddenly and stared coldly at Lin Feng with a sharp gaze. Lin Feng was the real person in charge. The supervisor clearly realized this as well. Lin Feng smiled and said calmly, "I'm here to find someone. His name is Divine Heart." The supervisor's expression changed slightly, but he quickly returned to normal. Then, he said in a low voice, "Sir, you're looking in the wrong place. Our Moro Chamber of Commerce only sells things. We're not responsible for finding people." Lin Feng was unmoved, however. He continued as if he had not heard him. "He entered your Moro Chamber of Commerce, but never came out again. Will you tell me where he went?" Seeing Lin Feng's nonchalant attitude, the supervisor also felt a little angry. He said coldly, "I've already told you. Our Moro Chamber of Commerce is only in charge of selling things. As for finding people, you've come to the wrong place." Lin Feng was unfazed. He stared at the supervisor with a faint smile. The supervisor was furious. He sneered and said, "Looks like you really intend to cause trouble at the Moro Chamber of Commerce?" "Cause trouble? I'm causing trouble right now. What can you do?" The supervisor's eyes narrowed slightly. Buzz. Suddenly, the array of Moro Chamber of Commerce was activated, and a terrifying pressure enveloped Lin Feng and the others. "Since you're here to cause trouble, don't blame our Moro Chamber of Commerce for being impolite," the supervisor sneered. Although the array of the Moro Chamber of Commerce could not be considered a cosmic array, it was still extremely sophisticated. With him, a quasi-emperor, activating it, no cultivator below the level of a grand emperor would be able to withstand it. As for grand emperors, don't joke around. Grand emperors were not cabbages. How could one run into them so easily? Moreover, how could a grand emperor not know the background of Moro Chamber of Commerce and dare to make trouble in the Moro Chamber of Commerce? As the supervisor activated the array, Lin Feng did not mind, but Miss Sarah could not quite withstand it. Although she was also a quasi-emperor, she had not been a quasi-emperor for long. She had not even completely mastered her own strength. How could she resist such a powerful array? "Lin Shen, dismantle it." Lin Feng's tone was cold as he stared at the array of the Moro Chamber of Commerce. Lin Shen was the name of Ancestor Lin. Only Lin Feng could call Ancestor Lin by his name casually. Destroy the array? Absurd. The supervisor of the Moro Chamber of Commerce was shocked and furious. Could someone be so arrogant as to actually try to dismantle the array? Their arrogance was astounding. However, when Ancestor Lin heard this, he could only feel distressed. Normally, he would never dare to offend the Moro Chamber of Commerce. But now, in front of Lin Feng, he had no choice but to bite the bullet. Since Lin Feng had asked him to dismantle the array of the Moro Chamber of Commerce, he would have to dismantle it. Boom! Ancestor Lin no longer concealed his aura. Immediately, a terrifying aura erupted. Just his aura sent a mere young Master Xiao flying. As for the array of the Moro Chamber of Commerce, it suffered a violent impact and shook continuously. Break! Ancestor Lin extended a hand. This hand instantly transformed into a huge palm that held up the sky. He aimed at the array of Moro Chamber of Commerce and grabbed hard. Thump! The array of the Moro Chamber of Commerce shattered instantly like an eggshell. The supervisor who was controlling the array also jolted violently. He had suffered considerable impact and was already slightly injured. A Grand Emperor. It's actually a Grand Emperor. Young Master Zhao's eyes widened, and his entire body was trembling. A Grand Emperor. It was actually a Grand Emperor. He had actually offended a Grand Emperor and tried to start a fight with a Grand Emperor. Moreover, young Master Zhao's father was a Grand Emperor. He had been influenced by a Grand Emperor for a long time, so he naturally knew that there were differences in power between Grand Emperors. The aura of this mysterious Grand Emperor in front of him was not inferior to his father's at all, and might even be stronger. For a moment, young Master Xiao could only stand there in a daze. The few women behind young Master Xiao supported him and hurriedly fled. This was no joke. If a Grand Emperor was enraged, just a little aftershock might be enough to kill a venerable, let alone cultivators like them, who were only planetary lifeforms. The supervisor of the Moro Chamber of Commerce also stared intently at Ancestor Lin and the huge hand. His heart filled with shock. A grand emperor, a genuine grand emperor. There might seem to be many experts in the Moro Chamber of Commerce, including himself. But in reality, he had been in the Moro Chamber of Commerce for more than 3,600 years, but he was still a quasi-emperor and had not improved at all. Moreover, this was not the headquarters of Moro Chamber of Commerce, but only a branch. Grand emperors. Only the two presidents were grand emperors. The others were all cultivators below the level of grand emperors. Hence, when a grand emperor entered the Moro Chamber of Commerce, even the two branch presidents would treat him with respect. He had actually offended a grand emperor and tried to use the array to trap a grand emperor. How foolish was this? What was even more terrifying was that the grand emperor seemed to be under the command of this ordinary-looking young man in front of him. Then who was this young man? For a moment, the supervisor's thoughts were in a mess. He knew that he had offended someone he could not afford to this time and messed up. Even if you're grand emperors, the two presidents won't let you off so easily for destroying the array of the Moro Chamber of Commerce. The supervisor gritted his teeth and hurriedly sent the message to the two branch presidents. How terrifying was the aura of grand emperors. Moreover, the commotion here was so huge. Forget about the two branch presidents, even the other grand emperors on planet Lightshower sensed it. For a moment, many mental powers swept through Moro Chamber of Commerce. Which grand emperor is gracing our Moro Chamber of Commerce with their presence? Suddenly, a magnificent voice sounded in the Moro Chamber of Commerce. Immediately after, two figures appeared in the hall of the Moro Chamber of Commerce. Ancestor Lin's huge hand also seemed to be suppressed by a powerful force. Grand emperors and two grand emperors at that. President, they're causing trouble at the Moro Chamber of Commerce. When the supervisor saw the two of them, his face lit up. With two presidents around, even if the other party was a grand emperor, they wouldn't be able to cause much trouble. Oh, I think there must be a misunderstanding. Grand Emperor, can you stop for now? We can discuss everything properly. The president ignored the supervisor completely. This scene shocked the supervisor. A grand emperor was ultimately a grand emperor. Even if the array of the Moro Chamber of Commerce was dismantled, the president would not pursue his responsibility immediately. If both parties made peace, it was very likely that he, the supervisor, would become the scapegoat. Even though he was a quasi-emperor, only one word away from a grand emperor, the identity and status between the two were worlds apart. For a moment, the supervisor's expression was uncertain. He did not dare to complain to the two presidents anymore. Lin Feng waved his hand slightly. Ancestor Lin nodded and retracted his aura. He stood respectfully behind Lin Feng, looking like a servant, which surprised the two presidents even more. May I know your name, Grand Emperor? The president asked Lin Feng directly. Since he had a Grand Emperor as his subordinate, he must also be a Grand Emperor. He had already cursed the supervisor countless times in his heart. How could he have offended two Grand Emperors over nothing? This is Mr. Lin. Lin Feng did not answer directly. Ancestor Lin was the one who replied in a low voice. So it's Mr. Lin. You didn't come just to dismantle the array of the Moro Chamber of Commerce, did you? Lin Feng shook his head and said, Of course not. As I said before, I'm here to find someone. However, this supervisor of your Chamber of Commerce has an arrogant attitude and thinks that I'm causing trouble. Since he thinks that I'm causing trouble, I might as well demolish this array and cause trouble. The two presidents could not be bothered to pursue the supervisor's responsibility now. Instead, they frowned and asked, Who are you looking for, Mr. Lin? Divine Heart. The expressions of the two presidents changed abruptly when they heard this. Clearly, they had a deep impression of the name Divine Heart. They definitely knew him. Mr. Lin, you've really misunderstood. This individual did not come to our Moro Chamber of Commerce. The branch president of the Chamber of Commerce took a deep breath and forced a smile. However, Lin Feng gave a half-smile and said calmly, Is that so? In any case, the array has already been dismantled. I might as well dismantle the Moro Chamber of Commerce. How dare you? The two presidents were also furious and shouted. If the array was dismantled, there was still room for negotiation for the Moro Chamber of Commerce. After all, these were two grand emperors. They had to at least give them some respect. However, if the branch of the Moro Chamber of Commerce was really dismantled, the Chamber of Commerce would lose all its face. Even the two presidents could not absolve themselves from the blame and would be severely punished by the headquarters. Lin Shen. Dismantle it. Ancestor Lin's heart skipped a beat. As expected, the worst outcome had still happened. Lin Feng was going to have a hard confrontation with the Moro Chamber of Commerce. Then, the Lin family would still suffer in the end. However, Ancestor Lin did not dare to disobey Lin Feng's orders now. If he did, he might not have a future to wait until. He might be killed by Lin Feng with a single palm strike right now. He had truly experienced how terrifying Lin Feng was. Even among top-notch Grand Emperors, he was definitely one of the best. Ordinary Grand Emperors like him could not resist him at all. At this thought, Ancestor Lin no longer hesitated. A portion of his combat body began to manifest. His huge hand extended and quickly expanded, finally turning into a huge palm that could hold up the sky, about to crush Moro Chamber of Commerce. Such a huge commotion naturally shook the entire planet light shower. Countless gazes and mental power were focused on the Moro Chamber of Commerce. Even the branches of the other 9 chambers of commerce were nervously paying attention to the proceedings. What's going on? Someone dares to fight at Moro Chamber of Commerce. From the looks of it, he should be a Grand Emperor. Which Grand Emperor isn't afraid of the Moro Chamber of Commerce? The Moro Chamber of Commerce was one of the 10 major chambers of commerce. When had it ever encountered such a serious provocation? The president of the branch shouted immediately, "Lin Shan, we've already investigated you thoroughly. Ancestor Lin of Planet OM, even if you're a Grand Emperor, the Moro Chamber of Commerce will definitely flatten your Planet OM one day." Ancestor Lin's heart trembled. He had ultimately been discovered. He was not a nobody. After all, he was Ancestor Lin, the only Grand Emperor in the Lin family. He was an expert who could blot out the sky on Planet OM. All Grand Emperors were known in the Pelagio's domain. With the Moro Chamber of Commerce's ability, if a Grand Emperor suddenly appeared, they would definitely investigate thoroughly. However, although the identity of Ancestor Lin had been investigated, the Chamber of Commerce had yet to find out about this Mr. Lin in front of them. Even though Ancestor Lin was afraid of the Moro Chamber of Commerce, he was even more afraid of Lin Feng at this moment. Even if his identity was exposed, he paid no heed and squeezed hard with his huge palm. Thud. Even if the vice president resisted, how could he resist the power of an experienced Grand Emperor like Ancestor Lin in a hurry? With a squeeze, the entire Moro Chamber of Commerce was crushed and instantly reduced to ruins. The prestigious branch of the Moro Chamber of Commerce was now in ruins. It was simply a disgrace to the Moro Chamber of Commerce. Lin Feng naturally protected Miss Sarah and the others and flew into the sky. At this moment, the sky was already blocked by 2 huge combat bodies. The Vice President and Ancestor Lin flew into the universe and used combat bodies over a light year to fight in a frenzy. A battle between 2 Grand Emperors was rare. Even in the Pelagio's domain, it had been a long time since a battle between Grand Emperors had occurred. The 2 parties were evenly matched. It seemed like a victor could not be determined in a short period of time. However, the branch president of the Moro Chamber of Commerce had a solemn expression as he stared intently at Lin Feng. No matter who you are, destroying a branch of the Moro Chamber of Commerce makes you an enemy of the Moro Chamber of Commerce. Enemy? Lin Feng shook his head, then said coldly, "You're not worthy." Swish. Lin Feng did not make any unnecessary movements. He just flicked his finger. Buzz. The cosmos seemed to be shaking, and even the entire planet Lightshower was affected. Even all the Grand Emperors on planet Lightshower felt a sense of fear. That's... The eyes of the branch president of Moro Chamber of Commerce suddenly focused. The moment Lin Feng flicked his finger, he actually felt the threat of death. Even a top-notch Grand Emperor could not possibly make him feel the threat of death without relying on his combat body. Combat body! The branch president roared. and his massive combat body expanded wildly, quickly manifesting. 1 light-year, 2 light-years, 3 light-years. The branch president's combat body had actually reached 5 light-years. The branch president of the Moro Chamber of Commerce was indeed worthy of his position. His combat body had reached 5 light-years. As long as he worked harder and obtained some opportunities, he could increase his combat body to 10 light-years. That way, the branch president might become a top-notch Grand Emperor. Of course, a top-notch Grand Emperor had to comprehend the ultimate law. This was also a difficult obstacle. Still, the strength of the branch president was undoubtedly very powerful among those below top-notch Grand Emperors. To Lin Feng, however, 5 or 10 light-years did not seem to make any difference. He only flicked his finger, and there seemed to be only a strong gust of wind. Yet as the strong wind streaked through the universe, crossed space, and approached the branch president, it had transformed into a terrifying cosmic tide. It was vast and mighty, infused with the aura of annihilating all things as it struck the branch president's combat body hard. Thud! A voice that resounded through the cosmos and shook the soul echoed in the universe, spreading in all directions. The combat body of 5 light-years was actually shattered by the tidal wave. The massive body shattered into pieces like an eggshell. Once it was swept over by the cosmic tide, even its aura of life dissipated instantly. Dead. The branch president of the Moro Chamber of Commerce, an experienced Grand Emperor second only to a top-notch Grand Emperor, had fallen with a flick of Lin Feng's finger, reduced to cosmic dust. At this moment, even the battle between the other vice president and ancestor Lin paused. Their expressions were different, but without exception, their eyes were filled with shock. Not to mention the many Grand Emperors on planet Lightshower. Originally, the other 9 chambers of commerce and some itinerant cultivators were all watching the show. This was a rare battle between Grand Emperors. Moreover, the 2 presidents of the Moro Chamber of Commerce were the ones fighting. The other 9 chambers of commerce were also eager to see the Moro Chamber of Commerce make a fool of itself. However, with a casual flick of the finger, Lin Feng had blown apart an experienced Grand Emperor, killing the branch president of Moro Chamber of Commerce in an instant. For a moment, all the Grand Emperors felt a lingering fear. They were no longer in the relaxed mood of watching a show. They were all Grand Emperors. If the branch president of the Moro Chamber of Commerce could be killed in an instant, they would not be much better off. Is this also a Grand Emperor? Even a top-notch Grand Emperor can't kill another Grand Emperor in an instant. Just what kind of terrifying expert did the Moro Chamber of Commerce provoke? Everyone looked solemnly at the ordinary figure in the cosmos. He did not have a powerful combat body, nor did he have an overwhelming and suffocating aura. However, this person, who could not appear more ordinary, had killed a Grand Emperor with a flick of his finger. How powerful was he? Tell me, where is Divine Heart? Lin Feng stood in the cosmos with his hands behind his back, looking calmly at the vice president. Divine Heart, Divine Heart. The vice president was a dignified Grand Emperor, but he was so frightened that he was at a loss now. He was truly petrified. Even the vice president could not withstand a single strike from Mr. Lin. What could he do? However, the matter of Divine Heart was really of great importance. If he spilled it, he would definitely die, even without Lin Feng doing anything. The Moro Chamber of Commerce seemed to be just a chamber of commerce, but in reality the hierarchy was strict. If it was violated, even a Grand Emperor would be executed. You're not going to tell me? Lin Feng's eyes narrowed slightly, then he reached out and made a light grab. Boom! Lin Feng's large hand expanded, covering the entire cosmos. The mighty and terrifying pressure was countless times more oppressive than a black hole. The vice president's 1 light-year combat body actually could not resist at all. Lin Feng grabbed it directly like he was grabbing a tiny worm. Talk! Where is Divine Heart? The vice president gritted his teeth, but refused to say anything. He seemed to be waiting for something. Lin Feng exerted strength slowly. How powerful was he? Even adding a little more strength would be unbearable for ordinary Grand Emperors. In Lin Feng's eyes, ordinary Grand Emperors were indeed no different from ants. Traces of the law of annihilation seeped into the vice president's combat body. As Lin Feng slowly exerted force, the vice president's combat body was also rapidly collapsing. No, no! The vice president roared in fear. If this continued, even if he was lucky enough to survive, his cultivation would be ruined. At this moment, one of the two presidents of the Moro Chamber of Commerce was dead, and the other was injured. Even the Chamber of Commerce had been destroyed. The entire branch might as well be completely destroyed. How serious a provocation was this to the Moro Chamber of Commerce? Many people could predict how furious the Moro Chamber of Commerce would be when they learned of this news. You seem to be waiting for something? Is someone coming to save you? Lin Feng looked at the vice president's demeanor of death before submission, and said with a smile, "Who else could come to save the vice president now?" I. The vice president opened his mouth. He was indeed still waiting. He believed that someone would come to save him soon. Boom! As expected, an aura that far exceeded that of ordinary Grand Emperors suddenly erupted on planet Lightshower. A figure in white slowly walked up the cosmos. It's the disciple of Divine King Lightshower, Grand Emperor White River. It's really Grand Emperor White River. That's a top-notch Grand Emperor. I heard that Grand Emperor White River and Divine King Lightshower don't interfere with conflicts on planet Lightshower? Haha. Did you really believe it? They're just rumors. How can the 10 major chambers of commerce not report to Divine King Lightshower when they're stationed on planet Lightshower? Now that something has happened in the 10 major chambers of commerce, how can Divine King Lightshower sit back and do nothing? This Grand Emperor White River probably came here under the orders of Divine King Lightshower. As Divine King White River walked step by step into the cosmos, it was as if a holy light accompanied Divine King White River. Wherever the holy light passed, it seemed to be able to calm all negative emotions, making people feel at peace. The ultimate law. This was the ultimate planetary law. Grand Emperor White River, save me. When the vice president saw Grand Emperor White River, he cried for help like a drowning person grabbing a straw. Grand Emperor White River glanced at the vice president. Seeing that the vice president's combat body was collapsing and being annihilated at every moment, Grand Emperor White River said coldly, "Mr. Lin, this is planet Lightshower. Cease your impudence." Grand Emperor White River, a top-notch Grand Emperor. So this is what you rely on? Lin Feng ignored Grand Emperor White River and looked at the vice president. At this moment, the excitement on the vice president's face came to an abrupt halt. He sensed the aura of death enveloping him. I can be even more impudent. Thud. The vice president's combat body was instantly crushed. Lin Feng retracted his palm, looking nonchalant. Huh? You really want to make an enemy of me and Divine King Lightshower? Grand Emperor White River's eyes suddenly focused, as if he was also very surprised. Facing a dignified top-notch Grand Emperor like himself, who even had Divine King Lightshower's support, Lin Feng had killed the vice president without hesitation. He seemed fearless. What did Mr. Lin have to rely on? Grand Emperor White River was not the only one who was surprised. The other cultivators were also very surprised. Grand Emperor White River represented Divine King Lightshower. Moreover, Grand Emperor White River was a top-notch Grand Emperor to begin with. He dominated the cosmos and was eternal, standing at the peak of the cosmos. Miss Sarah and Ancestor Lin were both pale. They had guessed that perhaps the journey to planet Lightshower would not go that smoothly. However, who would have thought that the commotion would actually get to this point? Not only did they destroy the branch of the Moro Chamber of Commerce, they even killed 2 Grand Emperors. Even Grand Emperor White River, the disciple of Divine King Lightshower and a top-notch Grand Emperor, was alerted. No matter what, the 2 of them and even the families behind them would not be free of implication. For a moment, both Miss Sarah and Ancestor Lin's expressions were a little anxious. Lin Feng still appeared very calm, as if the one standing before him was not a top-notch Grand Emperor, but an ordinary cultivator. He said slowly, "Since you're guarding planet Lightshower, you must know about Divine Heart, right? Tell me, where is he?" Grand Emperor White River's eyes narrowed slightly, but his expression turned solemn. The reason Lin Feng killed the vice president so easily was that he knew that Moro Chamber of Commerce was probably not the only one who knew about the whereabouts of Divine Heart. It was very likely that Grand Emperor White River and even Divine King Lightshower knew. "Why are you looking for Divine Heart?" Grand Emperor White River asked in a low voice. "Divine Heart and I are old friends. I've been looking for him for a long time." Grand Emperor White River did not say anything. Of course, he did not believe that Lin Feng and Divine Heart were really old friends. Moreover, how could someone find a friend by going on a killing spree like this? "All right, after all this talk, you won't tell me where Divine Heart is. Since you won't tell me, I'll find him myself." Lin Feng looked at the planet Lightshower below. His mental power began to sweep through the entire planet Lightshower. "How dare you!" Grand Emperor White River was furious. His combat body suddenly expanded, instantly expanding to more than 10 light-years. Moreover, intense holy light blotted out everything, suffusing the entire cosmos. All the cultivators, even the Grand Emperors, felt a heavy pressure. It was the pressure from a top-notch Grand Emperor. Top-notch Grand Emperors did not just have a combat body of more than 10 light-years. They also had the enhancement of ultimate laws. If it was perfectly compatible with the combat body, it could even enhance the combat body by 10 times. The law that Grand Emperor White River had was a perfectly compatible combat body, and could enhance the combat body by 10 times. Hence, the current Grand Emperor White River possessed the equivalence of a combat body of 100 light-years. It was extremely terrifying. A top-notch Grand Emperor. This is a true top-notch Grand Emperor. Grand Emperor White River hasn't fought in tens of thousands of years, right? I didn't expect his aura alone to be so terrifying now. Grand Emperor White River is valued by Divine King Lightshower, who devoted all kinds of resources to him. Ever since he comprehended the ultimate law and became a top-notch Grand Emperor, this is the first time Grand Emperor White River has fought. I didn't expect his strength to have reached such a terrifying level. He's probably one of the best even among top-notch Grand Emperors. Seeing Grand Emperor White River fight for the first time after becoming a top-notch Grand Emperor and display his powerful strength without restraint in front of everyone. Everyone on planet Lightshower was shocked. Although they knew that Lin Feng might be a top-notch Grand Emperor, Ancestor Lin and Miss Sarah were both a little nervous at this moment. They were both top-notch Grand Emperors, and Grand Emperor White River's aura was not to be outdone. For a moment, the two of them were a little worried. They were not worried about Lin Feng, but worried that if Lin Feng lost, things definitely would not end well for the two of them and even the families behind them. In the cosmos, Grand Emperor White River displayed his prowess. His terrifying aura filled the entire cosmos like a tsunami as he confronted Lin Feng from afar. As for Lin Feng, he still retained that calm demeanor. He did not even manifest his combat body.